Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Never before in the history of sports podcasts have two men brought you opinion and analysis like these two. They speak for a city that's desperate for wins and titles, not whining and travesty. You might not agree with what they have to say, but you'll defend their right to say it. Sports fans across the world, from Chicago, Illinois, this is the Mac and Reed Show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another edition of the Mac and Reed Show right here on the Barroom Network. I'm Evan Mack, joined, as always, by Ross Reed. We are streaming live on the Barroom Network platform, but if you've missed any of our shows before, check them out on YouTube, the audio versions on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean. You can follow us on social media. Follow me at The Real Evan Mack. Follow Ross at Ross Reed. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. How are you?
We were talking great in the pre-show, a little chat before. We were talking about moving is probably the top 3 worst things that you could, a life change type of thing, like going to the doctor, moving.
Yeah.
Dentist is like right up there too.
I put like road
Adult
trips
shit
up there to see like family members you don't really want to see. Like, I'm not a big road trip person.
Well, it depends on the road trip and how you break it up. I mean, I haven't done it with a kid yet. I can imagine that throws a wrench in it too. My most recent road trip was driving to Cleveland for like 24 hours for a wedding alone, which was not a fun, exciting drive as you can imagine.
No, that's a little Indiana, a lot of the Ohio Turnpike, and then
a lot of Gary, a lot of Hammond, and then the Ohio Turnpike. It's fucking
rolling right into the Mistake by the Lake.
It's exactly right. Correct. Which was not a bad time. Discretion advised. We got that up. I like that. Thanks, Aldo. We'll say what the fuck we feel. We have a lot to get to on this show tonight. We're talking Bears, of course, to lead off. I know Ross took to Twitter talking about win-loss records and predictions and how it's very upsetting triggering, if you will, for some Bears fans. We've got OTAs going on right now. The schedule was revealed. We'll go all over that. NBA playoffs, the Eastern and Western Conference Finals are here. Heat and Celtics and Mavs and Warriors. Heat and Celtics played last night, game 1, and then game 1 of Warriors Mavs is going to be exciting tonight. We'll talk about the White Sox and Ozzie Guillen and Tim Anderson feuding. We'll talk, of course, at length about the new Kendrick Lamar album, Mr. Morale, and the Big Steppers. And Ross, you also talked about your top 5 TV shows. I'm excited to hear that at the end as well. And surprises along the way. Who knows? But to lead it off, Ross, let's go over what you briefly talked about on Twitter and some recent Bears news.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so obviously schedule release came out last Thursday. That's one day after we had our last show last week, so we couldn't really break it down. But we now have all 17 games on the schedule, one bye week, which comes in week 14. There's the beautiful schedule right there, starting off with week 1 at home against San Francisco. And we'll be curious to see if we get Jimmy Garoppolo in that game, who is still on the roster for the 49ers, recovering from a shoulder injury, or if they're ready to hand over the reins to Trey Lance. I think a lot of people are saying that Trey Lance is going to be the guy. I'm not so quite sure about that. But, with the schedule release comes the immediate, hot takes from everybody from, professionals in the field who cover the sport to, regular Joes and Schmoes on Twitter on what the record is going to be. And I always find it funny how, especially in, late May, how people can have such vitriol towards what schedule predictions are and can take such offense to it and get so upset. And, it just led me to believe, why do people get so upset if the Bears are predicted to win 5 games this year or 6 games? And I get it. It's just good old-fashioned pride, and you want to fight for your football team that you love and root for, and a part of it is a fan base trying to will this team to hopefully getting to better days and getting back into the playoff hunt. But let's say a guy like Warren Sharp, who all he does is crunch numbers on Twitter. He is a strictly analytical, numbers-based guy, and if he runs his numbers and say that the Bears are a 6.5 win team, which is where also Vegas has them mostly slotted out for the year, I personally can't really fight with that in May. You know what I'm saying? And
Sure.
most importantly, I don't know if it even makes sense for me to fight over it. I think that's more of an issue that, guys like Justin Fields and Velus Jones and Roquan Smith and Eddie Jackson, something like that. I want to see them get more pissed off about it than, me or you or anybody else, just because they're the ones that have an actual say-so in how this goes and an impact on how this goes.
Yeah. I never, I mean, every year we do this and we will definitely still make predictions, but it's a prediction. It's a guess. I think that you look at the past schedules and they've been tougher too. Like we talked about the last week on the show, but man, like it's such a crapshoot, especially when teams start 4-0, they could easily lose the next 12, 13 games. It's such a long season. There's so much to be said about injuries where we just can't predict. We can't at all. I mean, I don't understand why people got triggered by it in the first place. They can be triggered about the matchups. And, that's a good segue into the schedule as it is right now. I think opening up against the Niners and Packers is a tough draw. I think opening up, hosting the Niners is pretty good. I know you've mentioned about Trey Lance not being the guy. If Jimmy Garoppolo's starting, he's got a history and he'll probably show up pretty well to play against the hometown Chicago Bears. And then, of course, Sunday Night Football against the Packers. That's your first road game. I mean, good luck, man. So you're looking at maybe 1-1 at worst to 0-2. I would be very surprised if it went 2-0 to start that. But I mean, looking segue into the schedule, it's kind of what we expected here. I know highlights certainly include that Bills later in the season, Christmas Eve game. You throw in a Monday night game against the Patriots. It'll be fun, and the Washington Commanders. But I'm excited for the first couple games, certainly with 49ers and Packers and how that'll shake out. But, like we talked about last week, it was a foregone conclusion that the Packers will be on week 2 Sunday Night Football for sure.
Yeah, I will be at that football game. Actually, I already booked my Airbnb. I will be in enemy territory. I cannot pass up an opportunity to do Bears Packers in Lambeau when it's not 15 inches of snow on the ground and like -2 degrees. So I jumped on that one right away.
Bears fans will hate you for that, Ross.
Yeah,
How could you? Boo, go in the summer. Come on.
Absolutely. What sticks out to me on the schedule release is only 3 prime games this year. In the past, the Bears have been featured quite a bit more game, and I think I'm losing who's the other primetime game? Was it Dallas? No, it was
Commanders,
Patriots.
Yep.
Excuse me, Monday Night Football.
Yes,
one thing that jumps out to me just by looking at the schedule is outside of Aaron Rodgers, the Bears, do see a lot of young up and coming quarterbacks. Of course, Josh Allen is young. He's not really up and coming anymore. They'll see him late in the season. He's a perennial all-pro, player at this point. And, Kirk Cousins is what it is. But, you've got some guys on this team that, I think that when you look at the trajectory of what Justin Fields can do this season, there are some guys where I like how Justin Fields matches up against them. I even like how he matches up against week 1 against Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo. But then you look at guys like Davis Jones on there, or Davis Mills, excuse me, and then Daniel Jones on the list. You look at guys like Wentz is on there. Lawrence is on there as well. Jalen Hurts. I think Justin should be a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts, and Tua Tagovailoa is on the list as well. Mac Jones on there. There are a lot of really sketchy subpar quarterbacks on this schedule, and I think that's where you have to hope that Justin Fields can take a step this year and outduel some of these guys that I think that he should be better than, not only this season but going forward for years to come.
Yeah, you bring up a good point about the young quarterbacks, and certainly week one is winnable against the Niners because look what Justin Fields did last year, keeping them in the game
Mhm.
late with that incredible scramble. And then the defense was just as bad as we've ever seen. But yeah, I mean, with this kind of retooled defense, we'll be curious to see how they play against these young quarterbacks like Mac Jones and
Mhm.
Daniel Jones and Jerry Jones, and Tua Tagovailoa, and all these guys. And I think it's certainly a softer schedule than the last few seasons, as I mentioned many times before.
Mhm.
But man, I think that Bills game is going to be good. Highlights, of course, you always look at the Cowboys, the Falcons. We've talked about how this would shake out, and it's not a bad first half start. I think there are some winnable games for a team that's projected to here we go with the projections. That's
Mhm.
projected
Mhm.
to lose, 10 games at least, something like that. They look like a middle of the road team with a young developing quarterback like that.
Right. And you could tell me that the Bears could win 5 or 6 games this year. You could tell me they can win 10 or 11 games this year. I think right now at this point, it's just still so early to tell. These guys are barely getting into OTAs right now, and Justin is learning, Luke Getzey's system, and we're trying to see, how the depth chart's going to shake out. There's been a lot of speculation today on Twitter. We don't even know who our starting right guard is right now. I think there's a lot to shake out still in terms of what this football team is going to look like going forward. So I don't really like to put a projection on things this early on. We also have seen in the National Football League, 1 or 2 games, can go either way based on 1 or 2 plays. And so that's could be the difference between winning 7 games this year or winning 10 or 11 games this year. To me, what's important, for me, and I think this is something that we've talked about, for a couple weeks now, is I need to see Justin take a next step, and I need to see him kind of show flashes of being that guy that we feel like could be a franchise quarterback going forward. And quite frankly, to be honest with you, outside of that, wins and losses don't really matter that much to me. You could take a look at Josh Allen, who we will see this year at Soldier Field late in the season. You can take a look at Josh Allen's first and second, 2 years in the league. Justin actually had better stats than him than the first year. Josh Allen, the second year, had a very pedestrian offense around him, but he was able to take a step forward. That's a lot of similarities to what Justin is going through this year. And from there, Josh Allen was able to start going to the playoffs for 2 years in a row. And I think that's what we want to see is, can we build this year on this roster, and most importantly on Justin Fields, keep him healthy, keep him upright, and allow him to stay forward. And to be honest with you, I'm fine if that means that they win only 6 football games, if they stay competitive. But we come out of this saying that they've got the number one, we've got the best quarterback that we've had in a very, very long time going forward.
Yeah, it's a very young team that is going to take some time to develop. It's not going to be overnight. 11-6 Nomad, putting him on record for that. That is blue sky as you'll get, my friends.
Yeah.
But if they make the playoffs with Justin Fields in his second year and this retooled defense completely overhauled, that would be quite the turnaround. But like Ross was touching on it, I think the guard play is going to be super important. How that line, I should say, line play. Shakes out is super important. The defense, with a lot invested in the backfield of that defense, it's going to be super important. And we're not seeing, a ton from OTAs right now. It's not training camp quite yet, but people are going nuts about the Bears' top picks as far as Tyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker go.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the Fields hype is there. And I know a lot of people, a lot of Bears fans and critics alike would say, take the pressure off of him. But I also feel like he needs to thrive on that at this point.
Yeah. And I completely hear what Jordan is saying. I know he said that, PFF is saying that the Bears have a bottom three team in the league, and they're going to be competing for the first pick in the draft. And I've seen a lot of publications say that. And to be honest with you, I say, cool, bring it on, because, it's just numbers at this point. It's just talk. It's a lot of opinion. It is a lot of predictions. And to me, I hope that means that the Bears are flying a lot under the radar this year, and they're going to be able to shock some teams. And that's kind of what I hope is. I hope that they're going to be the feisty young football team this year that is going to be a force to reckon with for years to come. But we might see some glimpses of it this year. I hope that does piss those guys off in the locker room. I hope that Velus Jones, who was drafted in the 3rd round, and people are saying that that was too high of a pick and stuff like that, or Kyler Gordon, who's saying that he shouldn't have been drafted there over a wide receiver. I hope those guys take that to heart and bring it to the football field. I guess is my point. Is all of this between now up until training camp, it's all just a lot of fodder to fill radio shows and tweets and columns and stuff like that. But in terms of when when it's actually time to play football, I hope that those guys do take that to heart and show with a lot more fire and intensity than we've seen the last couple of years for this football team.
Bears are equipped to shock some people given the schedule, I think. And we do have tempered, hesitancy about the Bears because we've just been set up for disappointment with new regimes before, I feel like. Just look at Mark Trestman and Matt Nagy in just the past. That is life as a Bears fan. It's tough.
I was going to say, from a gambling standpoint, the Bears are going to be favored in only 3 games this year so far.
Oh, yeah.
Can you name those 3 games?
Can I name the 3 games?
Yeah.
The Lions twice.
Schedule back up.
Give me the Lions twice, and then the Giants.
So it will be
one of them in there. Yeah,
they will be scheduled week 3 at home against the Texans. You can guarantee that. They will be
favored in that game. Okay,
they'll be favored. Yep, they will be favored against the Giants, and then they will be favored against the Jets as well.
Don't put them favored against Lions. That's trash.
Yeah.
Lions will always be at the bottom of the field. You said Falcons? Were they in there?
Oh, I'm sorry, Falcons. Yes, I said Jets, but it's the Falcons. You're right.
Oh, the Falcons.
Yes, a lot of people. I mean,
tomato.
This is another hot button topic these days. A lot of people think that the Jets will be a better football team than the Bears this year. So we will. Right. That'll be a very interesting Week 12 matchup because those 2 quarterbacks are going to be tied to the hip to each other, I think, for a long time, more so than Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones and even Trey Lance. I think that, I think that Zach Wilson and Justin Fields are going to be, kind of like this to each other as the 2 quarterbacks, because I think a lot of Jets fans who might like, the kid, they might just think that they might have wanted Justin Fields instead.
I think it was an ESPN guy talking about how the Jets season will be over before the halfway point, which
always
seems like a foregone conclusion. Like talk about betting. That's a safe bet there. Yeah. Before we get to like OTAs and just your impressions there, which can't be too much for us, we got to just shout out Tariq Cohen again, man. The news just keeps getting worse, and don't go sharing that video. Don't go look at it, but he grieves different, man. It's he's been through some bullshit, and tearing his Achilles was just terrible to see. And just what else can you say about a young guy like that trying to make a comeback?
It was heartbreaking to see. Somebody put the video on my timeline right away, and I immediately saw it. I immediately heard the pop. You probably know as well. I empathize with that young man. I tore my Achilles about it was like 7-8 years ago, and I knew it was torn immediately because the way he fell was exactly how I fell. It's not a fun road to go down. It's a long road. More concerning for him, it's on the same leg where he also tore his ACL and had the issue with that. So it really will do a lot to his agility and stuff like that going forward. But just like we talked about last week, listen, Tariq is a tough-minded young man. We wish him nothing but the best. We love him to death. I pray that he is in a good mental state right now with everything that is going on. And then I pray that he is able to get at least another opportunity going forward. Probably he'll be about 26 years old when he's able to recover from this and at least get to somebody's camp. But for the moment, I don't want to really speculate about the future of his NFL future or, really, dwell too much on that. I just hope that he's okay right now mentally because he is going through so much, coming off the heels of 2 brothers dying. He wrote the article. He got released by the Bears. And now he has to go through this. And now the whole world saw it too. It's so heartbreaking for him.
Yeah, he just bared his soul in that piece on The Athletic and or the Players Tribune, excuse me. And that was Yeah, just I mean, adding insult to injury, just unbelievably bad. On the note of Achilles injuries, and I was on a bachelor party last summer, and a guy tore his Achilles because we were doing a beer mile. Like right away, just took off. We knew he just crumpled. I was like, I'm in the heat with him. I'm like, should I run? But he's like, go.
As
chugged a beer and then tore the Achilles.
As a person, as a person with a very strong health and fitness background, I can 100% tell you doing any kind of explosive physical activity with lots of alcohol in your system is usually a recipe for disaster, and you are subject to a serious injury.
Yeah. Yep. He had torn his Achilles before too. That was just gruesome, my friend. Are you following OTAs at all, Ross? Are you taking this hype, this Kyler Gordon to lighten it up?
I am.
In the 2 OTA practices so far.
I am, and that's not surprising to me. Listen, that young man, he has star potential, and I think a lot of people who did want, let's throw a guy like Pickens out there, right? The wide receiver from Georgia, who there was a weird picture of him floating around on social media the last couple of days of him with a pot belly and a mask on, like watching the draft. It was very odd. But I think Kyler's going to be a superstar in this league, and I think that him and Jalen Johnson are going to be two outstanding corners for the Bears for a long time. And I think a lot of people are going to eat their words about how the Bears made a mistake with him. He's super athletic. He just has a nose for the football, which is something that, we really haven't seen from the corner spot probably since the likes of the old Tim Jennings and Charles Tillman days, right? So it's going to be really fun to see those two guys, kind of develop together. You need it in that division. There's some outstanding wide receivers that are up and coming. Not on the Green Bay Packers necessarily, but because I think that Kyler's a better player than somebody like Christian Watson, excuse me. But if you want a guy like Jefferson out in Minnesota and stuff like that, or even against a team like Buffalo where you have to see Stephon Diggs, I think he's gonna really make an impact right away. It's fun to see Matt Eberflus's impact on that side of the ball already. You're just seeing some of the players coming out and saying that the vibe is different, that the mentality is different, everything is going faster in practice, there's more intensity. And I think that's going to be huge for this football team to gel right away. We've been talking about it, but a big thing, a big way you could help your young quarterback is play awesome defense, right? Keep teams out the end zone and give him a short field to work with. And if you are able to do those things for Fields, that's one way that he's able to elevate his game going forward.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the offense, it's interesting bringing that up, talking about Lucas Patrick said that his belief in an offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy, is unshakable. Mm-hmm. And them both coming from the Packers, who obviously had a juggernaut in offense and an embarrassment of riches in Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones and, of course, Aaron Rodgers. Mm-hmm. But that's a big question is can they progress to that level where Justin Fields needs to be at, to that Ohio State level, almost where they recapture that, where he has a ton of weapons around him and good play calling after all, because I feel like, again, it would have been a different season, certainly if Fields played the entire season, certainly if injuries didn't happen, things like that. But if you just give him a chance, and the offense as a whole, you saw too many times with Matt Nagy and whoever was running the offense, but oftentimes Matt Nagy, that it just seemed dumb on 3rd and 1 or 3rd and short. It just various play calling that just didn't make any damn sense, like going or on 4th down when you didn't need to. You had a field goal opportunity, something like that. And you think that Luke Getsy will be that guy who is that OC who will bring out the best in Justin Fields and these talented young players around him.
Yeah, I think about, last year with Matt Nagy and that offense, it just wasn't putting Fields or the rest of that team in the best position to succeed. And you're just doing that young man a disservice coming fresh out of college and into the NFL where the game is already moving so fast for him. And, to me as a head coach or as just a leader in general, what are you doing to put people in the best position for them to succeed? I think this year you're going to see, even from now, just, from hearing Luke Getsy, he's preaching about getting the football out quickly. He's preaching about footwork, and they've changed the arm angle for Justin Fields to help him fumble less. These are all ways that you can help him be in a better position to succeed without even, running plays or even start to connect with the wide receivers and stuff like that. So I think the Bears are going to run a hybrid West Coast system model. I think you're going to see a lot of committing to the run. I think you're going to see a lot of play action. Justin Fields was one of the most explosive quarterbacks last year in terms of pushing the football downfield. I think the Bears are going to want to use that to his advantage, as well as use his size but still pocket awareness. I liken it to a young Donovan McNabb in Philadelphia situation where I think that the Bears can have similar success with offense. And I think if you can use a guy like Jones, who they just drafted, a big physical wide receiver that can probably catch the ball on a short yardage situation and extend plays, very similar to a young Terrell Owens, then you've really got something cooking there. So I like what I see so far from Getsy. I think that, I think he's going to put Justin in the best position to succeed, which is all we can ask for. And that's something to keep building on going forward.
Ross, you throwing out some names there. Donovan McNabb, T.O.
Ooh, absolutely.
Perhaps
if you look at Justin, he looks a little McNabb-ish. I mean, he's about
I get that. I like that comp too.
240, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
McNabb had a good mix. He knew he couldn't run his whole career either. I mean, he had to be able to.
Exactly, which is exactly what I don't want Justin to do. Is just because you can run doesn't mean that we want you to do it. We always want you to move around the pocket with the emphasis of still getting rid of the football and pushing it downfield, which I think is what somebody like Aaron Rodgers does not get enough credit for. Is Aaron, has great eyes, great vision, great footwork in the pocket, and he'll be able to move around and extend the play, but he's not looking to run and take a unnecessary hit, right? He's looking to still push the football downfield, and his receivers know that, and they always find a way to come back to the football. And I think that's what, if Justin can learn that trait and his receivers can get on the same page with him and they can start doing that, then that's when things start to really open up for this Bears offense. And that's, again, all comes full circle, playing back to the strengths of Justin Fields.
Oh, for sure. And he's got speed for days. So you could design plays for him and he can take off if something breaks down. But you don't want to just rely on that, especially with the rib injuries he's had and just protecting the damn quarterback, because he goes down, so does the whole season.
That's right. That's right.
NFL news otherwise, there's some the schedule release came out and it was huge, of course, and there's some great games lined up, like Mike McCarthy visiting Green Bay and Kansas City facing off against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Of course, Russell Wilson hosting the Seahawks hosting Russell Wilson and his new team, the Broncos. Chargers and Rams, of course. Ugh, why is Browns? Oh, I get it. Browns, Dolphins here. Bengals and Patriots, some great games. The divisional, looking at the divisional games, those are always the most exciting too. You look at the AFC North and Bengals look like the team to beat there. But most exciting division has been that NFC West for the last several years. And now the departure of Russell Wilson is so interesting for Denver. There's a lot of hype around the AFC West now too, and how that might be the best division in football.
Absolutely.
What do you think of the schedule release overall? Any big surprises or must-watch games that I missed here?
No big surprises. I think a big victory for me personally. Christmas falls on a Sunday this year. I'm a huge fan of they put like 3 games, I believe, on Christmas Eve. I'm a huge fan of that. The Saturday Christmas Eve slate is just awesome TV. Get the little eggnog going, get the Christmas ale going from Great Lakes, play a little Donny Hathaway, get some football games going, a little gambling, a little wrapping of the presents. That to me is, I'm completely all in. That sounds like my perfect Saturday during the holiday season coming up. Like you said, you hit on a lot of the other great matchups as well. It's going to be, interesting I like the fact that the Monday Night Football slate got beefed up because they went out and they spent money on Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, so they got the games better for Monday night. I think in the past couple of years, Monday Night Football has really, out of the primetime games, have probably been the most lackluster. I even think the Thursday night games have been more exciting than the Monday night games. So I'm glad that they were able to increase that. You got to put some Puerto Rican rum in that eggnog, Nomad.
Using the wrong shit, my friend. Yeah. Don't buy the Jewel brand eggnog.
Get some 151 in that eggnog.
Oh no, but I guess
I'll share with you guys my mother's coquito recipe as we get closer to the holiday season.
Oh, coquito. See, Ross, you were talking about those Christmas Eve games, man. There are a ton.
Yeah.
There are a ton. And then 3 Christmas Day games. That is wild.
Absolutely. That's how you have to do it. To me, it's like, Christmas Day. I want to see the Christmas Day games, but like the NBA to me has got a big stranglehold on Christmas Day as well. But you and I both have young kids. As you start to advance to that part of life, the Christmas Day is really developed to a lot with the kids. But Christmas Eve, that's prime just sports watching day right there, especially with it on a Saturday. I don't want to do anything that day. I don't want to leave the house. I just want to lay on my sofa all day and watch, NFL action. And I think that's also a time of year where college football is really slowed down. You're on your, 74th mayonnaise bowl or whatever the fuck they call this shit now, whatever bowl game comes on at that time. I want to watch some pro athletes play on a Saturday on Christmas Eve. That is awesome.
Yeah. It's sometimes it's nice when the holidays fall on this particular weekend. It'll be jam packed for sure. It's funny you were mentioning how Troy Aikman and Joe Buck have switched networks, and that is so weird to see Joe Buck just being the face of ESPN now, and soon we'll see Tom Brady and just kind of a changing of the guard, and like Collinsworth getting out of there.
Yeah,
very interesting.
And even ESPN announced today Dan Orlovsky will now be their number 2 guy.
I like that. That's good.
Absolutely. So a lot of shakeup out there. Al Michaels is on Amazon Prime now. That's a big one. And he's got he's got Kirk Herbstreit calling football games with him. So Herbstreit is going to do double duty. He's still going to call the him and Kessler to me are probably the number 1 sports booth in any sport right now. Like their Saturday night college football games, those guys are awesome together. It's going to really be interesting to hear that dynamic with now Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit as he goes to call NFL games. And then now, Tirico takes over full time for Al Michaels on NBC. So we'll get Maria Taylor hosting the pre-show, and then Collinsworth and Tirico.
Yeah. Good changes. I like it. I'm for it. Let's shift over to the NBA, Ross.
Mm-hmm.
And Western and Eastern Conference Finals. Well, Western Conference tipping off in just a little bit right after the show, and Eastern Conference tipped off last night, man.
Yep.
And Heat Celtics starting things off with a bang. Heat staying undefeated at home during the playoffs, and playoff Jimmy is here.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy asking all the Bulls fans, "Are you happy for me?" And I say, "Hell yeah, brother." Hell yeah. He went off for 41 in 41 minutes. The Heat were down going into the half, and it looked like the Celtics may steal one. They were down Al Horford and Marcus Smart. The offense went into the third. The Heat offense took control of the game, and Jimmy just lived at the line. He did a lot of the work himself. He was getting steals. He was just reading the Celtics offense so well, defending Tatum well. He's just, man, one of the hardest working guys out there. Of course, now you're seeing how people finally give Jimmy his due. I feel like forgetting that in the bubble, he went and did this earlier too. He has 5 40-point games in the NBA playoffs and none during the regular season in the Heat uniform. I mean, the guy is just, you can't argue how hardworking this dude is, getting the steals, getting transition basketball going. And, there were some big shoes to be filled by, Kyle Lowry being out. Gabe Vincent was really good. And Tyler Hero, he was every bit the 6th man of the year with his 18 points and taking good shots, creating good shots for others too. You heard the commentators talking about how he just changed the dynamic right away. And don't count the Celtics out. It's only one game, but these two franchises are what it's all about. It's cool to see the great leadership in the front office. You got Pat Riley with the Heat, Brad Stevens with the Celtics, the coaching, the team chemistry. It looks tough with Miami, having home court advantage. Celtics, again, need Horford and Marcus Smart back badly, but it's anyone's guess when Lowry will come back too. I think, Jimmy, that's the thing. I mean, he went off for 40, but he can't do that every night. We saw that's how he ran out of gas going into, the bubble finals, 2 years ago during the pandemic there.
Sure was it Rachel Nichols?
Oh, that's true. Hey, that's what they say with boxers, man. Tired legs. What are you doing?
Women weaken legs.
They do. And Rachel Nichols, come on. I mean, Rachel's, yeah, come on. You're Jimmy
Hey,
Butler in Miami. Come on, man. The
I'm not
bubble
gonna
was tough, Ross. The bubble was tough on them all.
I'm not gonna yuck somebody else's yum. It's you've been looking at Chippendale all day. Rachel Nichols looks looking a lot better.
I guess so, man. Yeah, Jesus Christ. Yeah. What
um,
do you think about that series? I mean, obviously,
listen,
one game
yeah.
down. So what do they got to do?
Absolutely. Listen, Jimmy Butler deserves a lot of credit for this. He is about 17 days apart from in age from James Harden, and they look like two completely different basketball players. And that's because Jimmy takes care of himself physically. He keeps himself in peak physical condition, which I got to give him a lot of credit for. And he is just a dog out there on the court, man. He's one of the best villains to me in the NBA because he just doesn't give a shit. And he plays with so much fire and passion and intensity. And he's going to let you know it. And he's going to really try and intimidate you. And that's just how he's been. That's how he's been his entire career since he came up from the Texas area and went to Marquette and worked his way off the bench with the Bulls, when he was buried on the bench because Tom Thibodeau wouldn't play him minutes. And now the guy is a perennial all-star, and he's got his team as a championship contender. I think it also speaks to a lot of credit has to go to Eric Spoelstra. I think Eric Spoelstra is one of the best coaches of all time in the NBA, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that. But look at the attitudes that guy has had to deal with for his entire career, from Butler to LeBron, to Wade, and to Bosh, and just all these guys that have gone through Miami. He's been able to hold it together. He's a great X's and O's coach. His teams always play with passion and physical intensity. And but like you said, this series is far from over. The Celtics were missing two of their best players. Al Horford was in health and safety protocols. We hope that he can get back out on the court soon because he's a big part of what they do. They're missing their defensive player of the year in Marcus Smart, and they were really missing him yesterday because I don't think Jimmy Butler goes off for 40 points if Marcus Smart is out on the court, and I don't think Tyler Hero goes off for all those points if Marcus Smart is on the court. So, there's a lot of series left here. This one, certainly isn't over because of one game. Remember, Milwaukee won the first game of the last series against the Celtics, and we see how that ended up. So,
sure.
I think it'll be really exciting to see how this goes. I do think that these are two teams that are just going to be extremely physical with each other. They're going to beat the crap out of each other for 6 or 7 games. And that could play to an advantage to what I think is going to be a Western Conference that is probably going to end pretty quickly because I think the Warriors are going to dispose of the Mavericks pretty quickly here in this series coming up. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll get to that in a moment. I think you hit it on the head with Celtics Heat, and well, a big reason to not count the Celtics out is that they outscored the Heat in 3 of those quarters. It was just that third quarter where they really let it go, I feel like, as in the Celtics. And Coach Spoelstra is absolutely that dude. You figured he caught a lot of shit because he had LeBron on his team. He had the big 3. But, man, these coaches just don't grow on trees. Like, there's a reason he's stuck around. There's a reason Pat Riley, who's a pretty fickle guy and who's a good basketball mind, has kept a guy who started as like a video coordinator as a head coach for years like this. And I think the Celtics have every bit of a chance going in here. I think Smart comes back, obviously, at some point here. And Al Horford, that'll help because there's an answer for Bam then too. Because Bam is and I think Nomad was saying Jimmy doesn't have to go off for 41 points. He kind of does because look at the production otherwise here. I think, Gabe Vincent had a decent game. But Jimmy's got to score 30 plus, and then the rest of the offense has got to be clicking there. And they're not going to call the fouls like they did every game like that too. I mean, it was very physical. There were some missed calls there, but there was a lot of good block shots, a lot of good defense, and then it just kind of turned on its head in that second half. Yeah, long series.
Yeah, Miami is very offensive deficient, especially when Kyle Lowry is not on the court. That's just another piece of offense that they don't have, especially because they're not playing Duncan Robinson in the playoffs right now because he's an absolute turnstile on defense. So, they've chosen to go defense first on the court. It's gotten them this far, but because of that, Jimmy does have to, kind of shoulder the load a little bit more. I expect the Celtics to come out in game 2. And they need to be able to finish games. They need to play, with more offensive intensity all 4 quarters, and that's when you lean on the 2 young stars that they have. I think Jason Tatum is a top 5 player in the NBA right now. He's been playing like that all playoffs. And then Jaylen Brown just has to step it up. And you need like that third or fourth guy. Sometimes it's Marcus Smart, sometimes it's Grant Williams, sometimes it's Al Horford. And that's why when you're missing two of those guys on the court, it's extremely difficult to be able to match up with Miami's intensity. But there's a lot of basketball left in that series.
Right.
So,
Al Horford. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, Ross.
No, I was
Al
gonna say, no,
Horford.
you're fine.
Yeah. Al Horford may be missed, but he's not your savior. Marcus Smart,
No.
not your savior. Not Jaylen Brown either. He's not your savior. You need to come together as a team and beat the Heat. And Ross, you're already just kicking the Mavericks out, huh? Golden State is that strong as that series is going to tip off soon. You're not liking the narrative of Cuban versus this Golden State team, Steve Kerr versus Jason Kidd, Steph versus Luka, Boban versus Looney. What's a San Francisco treat versus Dallas? What is Dallas?
Dallas has I don't know,
Exactly.
Cowboy hats, big oil.
Everything's bigger.
The TV show Dallas.
Big old hats. The TV show Dallas.
Who
there
shot
it is.
JR?
Full House versus Dallas.
Who shot JR? Debbie does Dallas.
Debbie does Dallas. There you go.
There's
Fantastic.
like 22-year-old kids that just don't even get that reference.
Oh, not at all. I think our target demographic here got all those references though.
Yes.
Everybody in the comments here.
Yes, absolutely. The reason why I'm writing off the Mavericks is because they were able to get this far by playing small ball and just putting shooters all around Luka and letting him kind of cook, which works amazingly until you get to the team that basically invented that, which is the Golden State Warriors. And the Golden State Warriors, when they put their little lineup of death out there and they go small, and Draymond is basically their big, but he can switch everything and he kind of runs the whole show. And Steph is moving off of motion, and Clay are cooking, and Jordan Poole now to add to the mix. I think that's a lot of firepower for the Mavericks to try and cover. For Luka to try and cover by himself. I think Steve Kerr is a much better coach than what the Mavericks have seen so far in these playoffs. And I think Steve Kerr is going to have that team ready to go. And I think the Warriors are hungry. I think that Steph Curry can smell another championship. And when you've got a all-time great player like him, he's got to be in your top 10 all time, And if he can sniff out another ring, especially when a lot of people wrote them off, then those guys are going to go in straight killer mode and really try and put this away. And I agree with you, Matt. I don't know how long Luka can keep this up for. It's funny. He was. They had a picture of him and Boban sitting on a patio. Maybe it was today, maybe it was yesterday, but they're just sitting there drinking a beer and he's just chilling, man. He's doing the European way. But those guys, those Warriors, they've got championship medal and they got championship heart. And I think that that's going to be a little too much for the Mavericks to overcome.
Right. Yeah, that experience really comes in. I know that was something else to see the Mavs go and beat Phoenix, Luka going to Chris Paul and the rest of Phoenix. I love when he count me out and eventually beating them and him going off. It's a foregone conclusion that he's going to get like 30 plus. It's about the rest of that team overall. I think he's going to chuck up some shots, but he's going to have to go shot for shot with Steph, for Clay, for these guys. And Draymond has really grown into that sort of assisting role as a big man who is just sharing the basketball and not shooting anymore. Again, sort of like trying to be like a Jason Kidd. The supporting cast it just doesn't pan out for me. Like you said, I think, this will be a lot shorter than the Celtics Heat series because Dorian Finney-Smith, they're a nice young team. Like we're seeing this next wave come together here with, i.e. sort of Celtics and Mavs coming up like this. But yeah, I think the experience is that big difference maker. And Steph Curry, whether he believes it or not, really is a pretty good two-way player and a guy who, it's got to go through Golden State, of course, too, and how well they will do at home. I mean, that's one of the toughest places to play in the league by far.
You know who Steph Curry is not? He is not Chris Paul. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, Steph Curry is not going to crumble and fall apart like that.
No chance.
Speaking of Chris Paul, I'd be remiss if we didn't at least bring up the Pat Beverley comments and antics from ESPN the other day. Listen, Patrick Beverley is a Chicago guy, and I typically do like what he says. However, I do not think that active role players in the NBA can just go out and straight disrespect the guy who is still a first ballot Hall of Famer, and quite frankly, is still better than you at your craft right now. So I know a lot of it was for show and for TV and for the antics that First Take will give you, but I kind of thought what a lot of Patrick Beverley did and what he was said about Chris Paul was some personal bullshit,
Yeah.
and I can't justify a guy that probably averages 7 points a game for his career and hasn't won shit to just completely go ham on a future Hall of Famer. I think it's bullshit.
Yeah, when you're matching up against the best in the league, dude, I don't know where this kind of feud. I forget. I think it was Damian Lillard who said, who hurt you? Why are you going after CP3 like this? And all of a sudden, there he is pushing Chris Paul. I mean, we know their feud goes back, and Pat Beverley just talks. That's what he does, and then just all the hate came to Patrick Beverley, like Danny Green going off like he's a cone out there. He can't defend anybody. Goes off for 5 points because we left him alone over there.
Exactly.
Like the guy, he's just there to get more viewers at this point. I mean, JJ Redick can just shut him down, and the guys who actually, have actual media experience, I feel like now, like Patrick Beverley knows basketball for sure, but he's not anywhere near Luka or Chris Paul's level.
Oh, you're not even in the playoffs anymore. Go to like Europe and something or something.
Yeah, go on a beach, bro.
Just go relax. You should be in Cancun right now.
Vacation with him, yeah.
Even Luka's still in the playoffs. He's sitting down. He's having a day beer right now. He's relaxing. Like he's still in the playoffs. Which, by the way, just that whole European just persona. I went to Madrid once years ago with my wife, and you just sit outside. You have a couple tapas, a little sausage, some potatoes. You have like 1 or 2 beers at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You go back and take a siesta for an hour or two, and you wake up, and then you go to dinner. The Europeans are doing it much better than what we're doing it here.
Oh, for sure. That was Tony Kukoc too. Like he would have a glass of wine on the regular. He's like, I'm taking it to the States here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it helps calm you down.
Absolutely.
Ross, let's get to it already here. We have some time for what's trending and everything, and I want to talk about lead in with the Kendrick Lamar album.
Mm-hmm.
And I love a first listen to an album, and it's also new and surprising. And at this point, I've listened to it a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers is what we're talking about. And first listen, it's interesting. Like the first thing I thought after going through it, it's a double disc, so it's split into 2. So immediately I feel like which half do I like more too?
Correct.
Which is an interesting nugget there. But it's not, and I didn't expect it to be, but it's not as commercial as Damn, where it just had a ton of radio play. But this is just this guy who clearly has been working on his own shit for several years now. He brings all these surprises and melodies. We know he's been influenced by jazz a lot. I love To Pimp a Butterfly. I think that's his best album. And, the jazz influence to start, the storytelling, just the spoken word, the base of Worldwide Steppers, N95, just the change up in beats is just kind of just vintage Kendrick at this point. He's got the R&B feeling. His features on vocals, the presence of Keem and Kodak Black. He had good. Oh, look at that! I like it. We Cry Together, where it's the piano and the back and forth between Kendrick and Taylor Page, who's a young actor, the arguing couple. Is really nasty. Look at this. So this is N95 in the video. He also has some insane visuals. Like he is one of the best artists overall, just for how he's able to direct videos like this. I hope there's other ones too. This might be the most sort of radio friendly song on the album. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, and when I put the album on, and N95 is the second track on the album, if you're listening to it in order, and I immediately knew that this was single potential for him. I think that you hit it on the head. This gave me a lot of To Pimp a Butterfly vibes. It was an outstanding album to me. I listened to it 4 times now, and it's something that I pick up on more and more, and it got better to me with each listen. Which is what you want a Kendrick album to be. And I listened to it in a variety of different ways. Listened to it in the car for the first time, running errands on Friday when it came out, versus in my headphones, 1 day later, versus like in the house on some beautiful Sonos speakers to really get the vibe. and it was awesome. You know, you hit some of the songs on the head, like "We Cry Together." To me, "Count Me Out" was probably my favorite song on the album. I love that. It's one that I keep going back to over and over again. He brought the best out of Kodak Black, which I'm not even a big
Yeah.
Kodak Black fan.
Out of nowhere, yeah.
And that was awesome. A lot of Baby Keem vibes on here. You know, those two are really close together. I love the song Purple Hearts with Summer Walker and Ghostface. But then there's a lot of very personal, emotional stuff that's real on here, especially in the latter parts of the album. And you could tell that this album was therapy for him, right? And he talks about going to a lot of dark places personally. He talks about kind of going off the grid the last couple of years, and he got a lot of his thoughts out in this project, and I can appreciate that as an artist, right? And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. He's not really a rapper. He's not a musician. This guy's an artist. This guy's a Pulitzer Prize winner, and so he's giving you art right now in the form of music. And you know, one of my favorite parts about it is he drops the album, not a big rollout, not a lot of pop and circumstance or hoopla. And then the guy's just in Ghana right now with his family, just relaxing and chilling. He's playing soccer with the kids on the street. He's not even thinking about trying to overly market this because he knows he's that dude. He's Kendrick Lamar. He's that good. He could drop a project that's almost a masterpiece. And then I'm just gonna go off the grid and just put some shorts on and no shoes and hang out with my family in Africa. And I'm like, that's just how it's supposed to be done. That's awesome. And in this era where everything has to be so commercialized and so I can't turn a TV on without seeing like a TikTok song or something attached to a commercial or a product. He goes the exact opposite of that and still finds a way to have the #1 album in the country.
Ross, you should have a TikTok. And
Ooh.
yeah, the beats are crazy as expected. You know, you talked about the influence of his own personal struggles, like
Mhm.
Auntie Diaries and Father Time. Father Time was really good. I mean, there's not like a bad song on the album, and it certainly all flows together. And it's just it's what I expected, kind of that mix between the last two projects he did, full albums with Damn and To Pimp a Butterfly, which are certified classics. And this is pretty up there. Which half do you like better?
I like the second half better personally.
Yeah, it's right. You're right, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he's so good at ending albums, I feel like, too. And as much as I loved everything, like I love Savior. It's very complete as a whole, but yeah, that second half could just stand alone by itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Ross.
Yep.
Top 5 TV shows. You've teased this. Wait, real quick.
Yeah.
Which side are you on, Amber Heard or Johnny Depp?
I know nothing
give a
about
shit.
what is going on with this.
All I heard is she's shitting on his side of the bed, and then I
Oh
just
my
lost
God.
interest. I'm like,
Oh
these
my
two
God.
deserve each other. They're nuts.
Oh my God. They do deserve each other.
Yeah.
Should we go 5-1 or 1-5?
Give me 5-1. Yeah. I mean, if you're ranking that way, I could rattle off 5 in no particular order.
Yeah.
But
My number 5 for me.
dramas?
This is strictly dramas. I don't do sitcoms. My #1 sitcom of all time is Seinfeld. That I won't.
End of list.
Yeah, that's Seinfeld for me is #1. I don't know if you put the Simpsons in there. That's not necessarily a sitcom. I don't know if it's still PC to say that the Cosby Show was great because it was. Even regardless of what he did, I don't watch it anymore, but it's still awesome. But there's a bunch of sitcoms. Full House was a classic for me and stuff like that, even like Family Ties and stuff. But this is strictly dramas for me.
Yeah.
So my number 5 on my list is definitely Mad Men, AMC show. I have 2 AMC shows on my list. The spoiler alert. But
look at Ross. Okay, keep going.
yeah, absolutely. What an outstanding show. God, now John Hamm plays Don Draper, and takes you through a great historical journey. But
Awesome
the
cast.
show was so well written, great cast. Elizabeth Moss has spawned off now to do a couple outstanding shows. She's done Handmaid's Tale. She's got a new show on Apple now. She's done a bunch of movies. We know John Hamm has become a great movie star now as well. He's done like The Town. He's done a bunch of good stuff. But that to me,
too on the opening theme for Mad.
Yeah, what a great opening theme as well. Awesome show. If you never watched Mad Men, makes you want to just drink whiskey and smoke cigarettes until your lungs collapse.
And then climb a flight of stairs.
And then climb a flight of stairs.
Well, I'll give you one of mine. Yeah. And 4 out of 5 are on HBO. And, I think, I guess the 5th on this list would be Game of Thrones.
That's my 4.
Yeah. I'd throw Game of Thrones on there. What can you say about Game of Thrones? I'm a big sci-fi guy. I love the medieval shit. And it was everything you wanted. There was good writing. There was great characters. You could, gripe all you want about how it went on a tangent and quite the opening as well. This game made me dizzy. I did not want to drink and watch this, but they the good characters and certainly I think it's the opposite of Mad Men, where these characters, these actors really became these characters, and they're not going to do much else. I feel like we haven't seen Khaleesi, we haven't seen Jon Snow, we haven't seen any of them really going on off to do other things. But the last season, whether you like it or not, was epic as well. And there's so many just standalone episodes where you're like, this is an hour and a half where I'm just like on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, I think it would have been best served going one more season to kind of wrap it up a little bit better. I think what you realize with Game of Thrones is it was such an epic show with so many characters, and it took you to so many different environments and worlds, that for a show like that, it's really tough to just stick the landing and try and put a nice, pretty bow on it. And regardless of what they did, you probably weren't going to be satisfied with the ending because you just constantly wanted more. But that is my number 4 for me. I can go to my number 3. I'm going back to AMC. It is the original, the one that helped to produce Better Call Saul. But I'm going with Breaking Bad as my number 3. Again, it's just a show, an epic show. Walter White is probably one of the 5 best TV characters of all time. Bryan Cranston plays it outstanding. Great cast. An epic storyline that kept you riveting. One of the greatest endings. We just talked about Game of Thrones not ending that well and sticking the landing. I think
Breaking Bad
absolutely was very satisfying towards the end. I put it up there with another great show on my top 10 list, 6 Feet Under, in terms of just awesome last episodes and seasons. But Breaking Bad for me just has to be up there for me. It's number 3 on my list.
This is surprising to me because we've talked about this before, and I feel like Breaking Bad was not in your even top 4 for a while.
What I've said is a lot of people consider Breaking Bad to be the number 1 show of all time. And that's when I say a lot of people overrate Breaking Bad, because it's not number 1, it's number 3, and there are 2 better shows coming up that are better than this. Number 2 is The Sopranos. Number 2, The Sopranos started off the prestige, hard, gritty TV drama that we see now. Before that, everything was so formulaic, very Law and Order or LA Law, a lot of shows like that, super formulaic. ER is another one I can think of. And then The Sopranos comes out, and Tony Soprano, and you get a lot of violence and nudity and just gritty stuff. And it was at times very uncomfortable to watch because the characters and people were getting killed off. And a lot of the stuff that you see on TV today, even from the shows that I just mentioned, they got a lot of that from The Sopranos. And so I had to go with one of the OGs at the beginning. It's outstanding rewatch. If you haven't watched it in a long time, because it has been out now.
I rewatched it recently.
It is absolutely outstanding on a rewatch. So yeah, Sopranos number 2, and my number 1. Come on, man. We're going to Baltimore. The Wire is the best show of all time. David Simon is an absolute genius. He's got a new show out right now. That's on HBO right now that takes you back to the police scene in The Wire. But never have I been so involved with a large amount of characters that I just wanted to root for, but they were so flawed. And I've never seen such riveting TV where I actually felt like I was in East and West Baltimore every single episode. And it was just absolutely riveting and captivating from season 1 all the way to season, to it finished up. Our Omar, as we lost Michael K. Williams last year, unfortunately, he is truly one of the most iconic TV characters of all time. Extremely unique as a gay thug in a Robin Hood like atmosphere. But I implore anybody who has never watched The Wire before to start it ASAP and enjoy it. I have now watched The Wire 4 times as a rewatch, and I do it about every couple of years. And every single couple of years, I pick up on more and more in something new. It gave us Michael B. Jordan, who's turned into a big star now. It gave us Idris Elba, who is also turned into a big star right now. So The Wire to me is just it's the best. It's the most well written show of all time, and it's definitely my favorite. It's number one.
I think important criteria for this list is how shows end, and Sopranos didn't end too well. The Wire could have kept going, but it had to end in certain ways. And how it did. The only show I'd kick out is Mad Men, and I'd put True Detective up there.
True Detective season 2 is rough.
Yeah, but I'm not going on season 2. I'm just going straight up season 1 that set it off. Every other follower can just they're just that. You're just mimicking the original. But going back to and McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, I mean, come on. It was just so well shot, so well written, directed. Like I feel like it's underrated as far as that list goes. Really good. HBO just killing it, of course. And Better Call Saul, to the Breaking Bad point, that's a fine show right now, too. That's the best TV series we have right out there. But we wouldn't have it without Breaking Bad. Very satisfying ending. You had Walter White and Aaron Paul now pimping out their mezcal, which is not very good, but really great show. I mean, the top 3 is the top 3. And I can't, I think the number 1 show there, it's different for everybody. If it's The Wire, if it's Breaking Bad, or if it's Sopranos, but one of those is it, man.
You usually hear one of those 3 shows in a rotation for most people. A couple honorable mentions for me. I shouted out 6 Feet Under, which is the outstanding show. That was out at the same time during The Wire and also Sopranos. And I'll shout out Sons of Anarchy as well. I was a huge fan of Sons of Anarchy. I thought it was very different. It was a time where FX was really kind of being cutting edge, and they had shows like The Shield and Damages and Nip Tuck and stuff like that. So, shout out to Sons of Anarchy. I didn't quite like the last season of that one, so it doesn't make my top 5, but I was still a huge fan.
Over here with The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead is several seasons just too late for me. It has gone on so long, and I get it based on the graphic novels, and now there's spinoffs and shit. But yeah, I agree with you. There's some Netflix series that can be up there. I mean, Ozark wasn't the best show of all time. It was a fine show. I think Narcos is coming up there though. With Narcos Mexico has been.
I could have used another season of Mindhunter, quite honestly. But
another
topic for another day. But David Fincher is my favorite director of all time, and David Fincher is the brainchild behind Narcos. So behind Mindhunter. So anything David Fincher touches is gold for me.
You got that right. Well, we're out of show. Thanks to everybody for listening in. If you missed any of the show or any of our previous shows, you can catch them on the Barroom YouTube channel or on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, wherever you get your podcast for the audio version. I'm at the Real Evan Mac on Twitter. Ross is at Ross Reed. He tweets a lot more than me. Get his opinions and his polls out there. Everybody have a great week. Be good to each other. And Science Fliction is next at 9 Central Time. Coming up very. See y'all.